This is A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. Scene 1, Part 1. So we begin with an excerpt from a poem called The Broken Tower by Hart Crane. Hart Crane was an idol of Tennessee Williams. Williams really identified with Crane quite a bit in a number of different ways. And let's read this. It says, "And so it was I entered the broken world to trace the visionary company of love, its voice an instant in the wind, I know not whether hurled, but not for long to hold each desperate choice." So, think about that. He chose these words to preface the play for a reason, so as we read, keep these words in mind. Scene 1. The exterior of a 2-story corner building on a street in New Orleans, which is named Elysian Fields, and runs between the L&N tracks and the river. The section is poor, but unlike corresponding sections in other American cities, it has a raffish charm. The houses are mostly white-framed, weather-gray, with rickety outside stairs and galleries and quaintly ornamented gables. The building contains 2 flats, upstairs and down. Faded white stairs ascend to the entrances of both. It is the first dark of an evening early in May. The sky that shows around the dim white building is a peculiarly tender blue, almost a turquoise, which invests the scene with a kind of lyricism and gracefully attenuates the atmosphere of decay. You can almost feel the warm breath of the brown river beyond the warehouses, with the faint redolence of bananas and coffee. The corresponding air is evoked by the music of Negro entertainers at a barroom around the corner. In this part of New Orleans, you are practically always just around the corner or a few doors down the street from a tinny piano, being played with the infatuated fluency of brown fingers. This blue piano expresses the spirit of the life which goes on here. So, we have this idea of turquoise, right? So, the blue piano expresses the spirit of life which goes on here. He opens by giving a description of the neighborhood, right? And as we discussed in the notes, it's a very bohemian part of town. It's in the French Quarter of New Orleans, which is the old part of the city, and it has this kind of decaying grandeur about it. And in the background, there's always this blue piano, this music kind of always being heard somewhere in the background. And that is where we are. 2 women, one white and one colored, are taking the air on the steps of the building. The white woman is Eunice, who occupies the upstairs flat. The other woman is a neighbor. For New Orleans is a cosmopolitan city, where there is a relatively warm and easy intermingling of races in the old part of town. Above the music of the blue piano, the voices of people on the street can be heard overlapping. 2 men come around the corner, Stanley Kowalski and Midge. They are about 28 or 30 years old, roughly dressed in blue denim work clothes. Stanley carries his bowling jacket and a red-stained package from a butcher's. They stop at the foot of the steps. Stanley bellowing, "Hey there, Stella baby!" Stella comes out of the first floor landing, a gentle young woman about 25, and of a background obviously quite different from her husband's. I think that is something interesting as well. She's of a background obviously quite different than her husband's. And as we discussed in the notes, we know why that is, right? Stella grew up on a plantation, and he We don't know where exactly he grew up, but definitely wasn't as sophisticated a lifestyle, maybe, as Stella. Stella mildly. Don't holler at me like that. Hi, man. Stanley. Catch! What? Me! He heaves the package at her. She cries out in protest, but manages to catch it, and then she laughs breathlessly. Her husband and his companion have already started back around the corner. So this is the type of man that Stanley is. On the way home from work, he goes by the house to throw whatever meat he picked up for dinner at his wife on his way to go bowling after work. Right? Pretty rough and tumble, that's Stanley. Stella calling after him. Stanley, where are you going? Bowling. Can I come watch? Yeah, come on. He goes out. Be over soon. Stella to the white woman. Hello, Eunice. How are you? Eunice. I'm all right. Tell Steve to get him a poor boy sandwich because nothing's left here. They all laugh. The colored woman does not stop. Stella goes out. What was in that package What was in that package you threw at her? She rises from the steps, laughing louder. Oh, you hush now. Catch what? She continues to laugh. Blanche comes around the corner, carrying a valise. So Blanche now appears. She's carrying a valise, and a valise is basically a suitcase. Now, pay attention to how she is described, and what she's wearing, and what she looks like. All right? She looks at a slip of paper, and then at the building. And then again at the slip, and then again at the building. Her expression is one of shocked disbelief. Her appearance is incongruous to the setting. Incongruous means it doesn't line up, right? It looks different. It's not the same. She is daintily dressed in a white suit with a fluffy bodice, necklace, and earrings of pearl, white gloves and hat, looking as if she were arriving at a summer tea or cocktail party in the Garden District. So she's wearing an all-white outfit, right? White pearls, white gloves, white shoes, white dress, white hat, white suitcase. Looking very proper. She is about 5 years older than Stella. Her delicate beauty must avoid a strong light. There is something about her uncertain manner, as well as her white clothes, that suggests a moth. There's a lot to unpack here. So we talked about what she's wearing. Great. Right. This. What else? Okay, so we talked about she's wearing white clothes, white gloves, white this, white that. We talked about the meaning behind her name. Her name means white woods, Blanche Dubois. But it says her delicate beauty must avoid a strong light. And it says something about her suggests a moth. So he's kind of drawing a parallel here between Blanche and a moth, right? What happens is moths are attracted to light, but what happens when they get there? They get burned by the flame, right? Something to keep in mind, she's described as being delicate. You know, what's another word for delicate? Fragile, maybe, right? So how might she be fragile in other ways? Things to be thinking about. Eunice finally. What's the matter, honey? Are you lost? Blanche, with faintly hysterical humor. Well, they told me to take a streetcar named Desire, and then transfer to another one called Cemeteries and ride 6 blocks to get off at Elysian Fields. Well, that's where you are now. At Elysian Fields? This is Elysian Fields. Well, they mustn't have understood what number I wanted. What number are you looking for? Blanche wearily refers to the slip of paper. 632. Well, you don't gotta look no further. Blanche uncomprehendingly. I'm looking for my sister, Stella Dubois. Mrs. Stanley Kowalski. Yeah, that's the party. You just didn't miss her, though. Can this be her home? She's got the downstairs here, and I got the up. Oh, she's out? You notice that bowling alley around the corner? I'm not sure that I did. Well, that's where she's at, watching her husband bowl. You want to leave her suitcase here? I can go find her. No. Well, I'll go. I'll go tell you come. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. She wasn't expecting you? No, not tonight. Well, why don't you just go in and make yourself at home till they get back? Well, how could I do that? We own this place, so I can let you in. She gets up and opens the downstairs door. A light goes on behind the blind, turning it light blue. There's that color blue again. Blanche slowly follows her into the downstairs flat. The surrounding areas dim out as the interior is lighted. 2 rooms can be seen, not too clearly defined. The first one entered is primarily a kitchen, but contains a folding bed to be used by Blanche. The room beyond this is a bedroom. Off this is a narrow door to a bathroom. Eunice, defensively noticing Blanche's look. Blanche does not look happy. She's looking around like, what kind of a hole did I just walk into? Eunice, defensively noticing Blanche's look. Sort of messed up right now, but when it's clean, it's real sweet. Is it? I think so. So, you're Stella's sister? Yes. Wanting to get rid of her. Thank you for letting me in. Por nada, as the Mexicans say, por nada. Stella spoke to you? Yes. I think she said you taught school. Yes. And you're from Mississippi, huh? Yes. She showed me a picture of your home place, the plantation. Belle Reve? Great big white place with white columns. Yes. A place like that must be awful hard to keep up. If you will excuse me, I'm just about to drop. Sure, honey. Why don't you sit down? What I meant was that I'd like to be left alone. I'll make myself scarce in that case. Well, I didn't mean to be rude, but I'll drop by the bowling alley and hustle her up. She goes out the door. Now pay attention to what Blanche does here. Blanche sits in a chair very stiffly with her shoulders slightly hunched and her legs pressed close together, her hands tightly clutching her purse as if she were quite cold. After a while, the blind look goes out of her eyes and she begins to look slowly around. A cat screeches. Meow. She catches her breath with a startled gesture. Suddenly, she notices something in a half-opened closet. What could this be? She springs up and crosses to it and removes a whiskey bottle. She pours half a tumbler of whiskey and tosses it down. Notice he doesn't say drinks it or sips it, tosses it, like throws that whiskey back like it's nothing. She carefully, now this is the weird thing, she carefully replaces the bottle, washes out the glass, and then resumes her seat in front of the table. Blanche faintly to herself. I've got to keep hold of myself. Stella comes quickly around the corner of the building and runs to the doors of the downstairs flat. Stella calling out joyfully, Blanche! For a moment they stare at each other, and then Blanche springs up and runs over to her with a wild cry. Oh, Stella, Stella! Oh, Stella for star! She begins to speak with feverish vivacity, as if she feared for either of them to stop and think. They catch each other in a spasmodic embrace. Oh, now then, let me look at you. Oh, no, but you don't look at me, Stella. No, not until later. Not until I've bathed and rested. Oh, and turn off that overlight. Turn that off. I won't be looked at in this merciless glare. Stella laughs and complies. Oh, come back here now, baby. Oh, my baby, Stella, Stella for star. She embraces her again. Well, I thought you'd never come back to this horrible place. What am I saying? Well, I didn't mean to say that. I meant to be nice about it and say, oh, what a convenient location and such. Oh, precious lamb. Well, you haven't said a word to me. Well, you haven't given me a chance to, honey. She laughs, but her glance at Blanche is a little anxious. Oh, well, now you talk. Open your pretty little mouth and talk while I look around for some liquor. Well, I know you must have some liquor on in the place. Where could it be, I wonder? Oh, I spy. Now, we know this is weird because we know that she knows that there's liquor in the house. She just poured herself a nice old glass of whiskey, so she's up to something here. She's, being weird. She rushes to the closet and removes the bottle. She is shaking all over. How about that? And panting for breath as she tries to laugh. The bottle nearly slips from her grasp, Stella noticing. Blanche, you sit down and let me pour the drinks. Well, I don't know what we've got to mix it with. Maybe the Coke in the icebox. Look and see, honey, while I'm... Oh, no Coke, honey, not with my nerves tonight. Where is, Stanley? Bowling? He loves it. They're having found some soda tournament. Oh, just water, baby, to chase it. Oh. Now, don't get worried now. Your sister hasn't turned into a drunkard. She's just all shaken up and hot and dirty and tired. Now you sit down now and explain this place to me. What are you doing in a place like this? Now, Blanche, I'm not going to be hypocritical. I'm going to be honestly critical about it. Never, never, never in my worst dreams could I picture... Only Poe. Only Mr. Edgar Allan Poe could do it justice. Oh, there I suppose is the ghoul-haunted woodland of Ware. Oh, Stella. Oh, now, honey, those are the L&N tracks. Oh, no, now, seriously, putting joking aside. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you write me, honey? Why didn't you let me know? Stella, carefully pouring herself a drink. Tell you what, Blanche. Why, that you had to live in these conditions. Aren't you being a little intense about it? It's not that bad at all. New Orleans isn't like other cities. Well, this has got nothing to do with New Orleans. Oh, you might as well... Oh, forgive me, blessed baby. The subject is closed. Thanks. During the pause, Blanche stares at her. She smiles at Blanche. Blanche looking down at her glass with shakes in her hand. Now, this is the second, maybe even third time that Blanche has been described as shaking. So what is going on with her? You're all I've got in the world, and you're not glad to see me. Why, Blanche, you know that's not true. No? I'd forgotten how quiet you were. Well, you never did give me a chance to say much, Blanche, so I just got in the habit of being quiet around you. Blanche vaguely. Good habit to get into. Then abruptly. Well, you haven't asked me how I happened to get away from school before the end of the spring term. Well, I thought you'd volunteer that information, if you wanted to tell me. You thought I'd been fired. No, I thought you might have resigned. Well, I was so exhausted by all I've been through, my nerves broke. Nervously tamping a cigarette. Well, I was on the verge of lunacy almost, so Mr. Graves is the high school superintendent. He suggested that I take a leave of absence so I could put all those details into the wire. Oh, those buzzes ran through me and it feels so good. Well, won't you have another? No, one's my limit. You sure? Well, you haven't said a word about my appearance. You look just fine. Oh, God love you for a liar. Daylight never exposed so total a ruin, but... Well, you put on some weight. Yes. Well, you're just as plump as a little partridge. And it is so becoming to you. Now, Blanche, yes, it is, or I wouldn't say it. You just have to watch around the hips a little. Stand up. Not now. You hear me? I said stand up. Stella complies, reluctantly. Oh, you messy child, you spilled something on your pretty white lace collar. About your hair. You ought to have it cut in a feather bob with your dainty features. Stella, you have a maid, don't you? No, I mean, with only 2 rooms, it's... What? 2 rooms, did you say? This one and... She's embarrassed. Blanche. The other one? Oh! I am going to take just one little teeny nip more, sort of to put the stopper on, so to speak, and then put the bottle away so I won't be tempted. She rises. I want you to look at my figure. She turns around. You know I haven't put on 1 ounce in 10 years, Stella. I weighed what I weighed that summer you left Belle Reve. The summer Daddy died and you left us. Just incredible, Blanche. How well you're looking. But Stella, there's only 2 rooms. I don't see where you're going to put me. We're going to put you in here. What kind of bed's this? One of them collapsible things? She sits on it. Does it feel all right? Wonderful, honey. I don't like beds that give too much. There's no door between the 2 rooms, and Stanley, will it be decent? Stanley is Polish, you know. Oh, yes, they're something like Irish, aren't they? Well, only not so highbrow. They both laugh again in the same way. Well, I bought some nice clothes to meet all your lovely friends in. Oh, I'm afraid you won't think they're lovely. But what are they like? They're Stanley's friends. Polacks. They're a mixed lot, Blanche. Heterogeneous types. Oh, yes, types is right. Well, anyhow, I bought nice clothes and I'll wear them. Now, I guess you're hoping I'll say that I'll put up at a hotel, but I'm not going to put up at a hotel. I want to be near you. I've got to be with somebody. I can't be alone because, as you must have noticed, I'm not very well. Her voice drops and her look is frightened. You seem a little bit nervous or overwrought or something. Will Stanley like me, or will I just be a visiting in-law, Stella? I couldn't stand that. Oh, you'll get along fine together, if you just try not to, well, compare him with the man that we went out with at home. Is he so different? Yes, a different species. Well, in what way? What's he like? Oh, you can't describe someone who you're in love with. Here's a picture of him. She hands a photograph to Blanche. An officer? A master sergeant in the engineers corps. Those are decorations. He had those on when you met him? Well, I assure you I wasn't just blinded by all that brass. Well, that's not what But of course there were things to adjust herself to later on, such as his civilian background. How did he take it when you said I was coming? Oh, Stanley doesn't know yet. Blanche is frightened. You haven't told him. He's on the road a good deal. Oh, travels? Yes. Good. But, isn't he? Well, I can hardly stand it when he's away from me for a night. Why, Stella, when he's away for a week, I nearly go wild. Gracious! And when he comes back, I cry and laugh like a baby. Well, I guess that's what it is meant by being in love. Stella, what? Well, I haven't asked you about things you probably thought I was going to ask, and so I'll expect you to be understanding about what I have to tell you. What, Blanche? Well, Stella, you're going to reproach me. Well, I know you're bound to reproach me, but before you do, take into consideration you left. I stayed and struggled. You came to New Orleans and looked out for yourself, but I stayed at Belle Reve and tried to hold it together. Well, I'm not meaning this in any reproachful way, but all the burden descended on my shoulders. The best I could do was make my own living, Blanche. Blanche begins to shake, again with intensity this time. Well, I know, but you are the one that abandoned Belle Reve, not I. I stayed and I fought for it, bled for it, almost died for it. Well, stop this hysterical outburst and tell me what's happened. What do you mean, fought and bled? What kind of... I knew you would, Stella. I knew you would take this attitude about it. About what? Please, the loss. The loss. Belle Reve? Lost, is it? No. Yes, Stella. They stare at each other across the yellow-checked linoleum of the table. Blanche slowly nods her head, and Stella looks slowly down at her hands folded on the table. The music of the blue piano grows louder. Blanche touches her handkerchief to her forehead. But how did it go? What happened? Blanche, springing up. You're a fine one to ask me how it went. Blanche, you're a fine one to sit there accusing me of it. Blanche, I took the blows in my face and my body. All those deaths. The long parade to the graveyard, Father. Mother Margaret in that dreadful way. So big with it couldn't be put in a coffin. Had to be burned like rubbish. You just came home for the funeral, Stella, and funerals are pretty compared to deaths. Funerals are quiet. But deaths, not always. Sometimes their breathing is hoarse, and sometimes it rattles, and sometimes they even cry out to you, don't let me go. Even the old sometimes say, don't let me go, as if you are able to stop them. But funerals are quiet, with pretty flowers, and oh, what gorgeous boxes they pack them away in. Unless you were there at the bed when they cried out, hold me, you'd never suspect there was a struggle for breath and bleeding. You didn't dream, but I saw, and now you sit there telling me with your eyes that I let the place go? How in hell do you think all that sickness and dying was paid for? Death is expensive, Miss Stella, and old cousin Jessie's right after Margaret's, hers? Well, the Grim Reaper had put up his tent on our doorstep, Stella. Belle Reve was his headquarters. Honey, that's how it slipped through my fingers. Which of them left us a fortune? Which of them left a set of insurance, even? Only poor Jessie. 100 to pay for the coffin, that was all, Stella. And I, with my pitiful salary at the school? Yes, accuse me. Sit there and stare at me thinking I let the place go. I let the place go? Where were you? In bed with your Pollock. Stella springing to her feet. Blanche, you be still, that's enough. She starts out. Where are you going? I'm going to the bathroom to wash my face. Oh, Stella, you're crying. Does that surprise you? Forgive me. Well, I didn't mean to. And this is where we are going to stop. It is Stanley's entrance. So, lots to unpack here. Obviously, Blanche is not doing very well. She lost Belle Reve. Her beautiful dream is gone. Right? We've learned a lot about Stella and Blanche's family. There was a number of deaths kind of right in a row that kind of decimated everything. Things slipped through their fingers. Nobody left any money. It didn't really go very well for Blanche, especially once Stella left Belle Reve. So, that is Scene 1, Part 1. And we'll pick it up next time. Talk soon.